We want to get started on time, so we welcome all of you to this day of celebration. We thank you for coming. We want you to be able to enjoy what's going on. That's why the food is there, the coffee and the drinks, and I thank the committee who went to the store. That's what Koinonia decided to do this time. Instead of trying to have some home-baked goods, we went to the store, so I thank you. It says opening prayer. Instead of that, Koinonia knows that quite often when I start something out, I start it with some little thing that I've read recently, which I thought was pertinent, and that happened again. This is from a magazine that Mary Boner shares with me, and I really enjoy it. It's called Daily Devotional, The Word for You, and it comes from the Bob Gass Ministries, and this was something that I read. I think it's very appropriate to the people that we are going to hear from today. It's based upon Isaiah 41:10. Which y'all get settled down here. Isaiah 41:10 says, "Don't be afraid, for I am with you." And it is titled, "Get out of your comfort zone." Two of our biggest fears, failure and criticism, they never completely go away, no matter how long you've been trained to speak publicly or to work publicly. You can't overcome them, but they'll show up when you face your next challenge. It's in accepting fear as a part of life's journey instead of running from it that you learn to conquer it. Indeed, as you look back at what you've already overcome, you realize that most times failure doesn't do permanent damage. You actually grow stronger through it. If you're anxious today, God is saying to you, don't be afraid, for I am with you. So trust Him and get out of your comfort zone. An unknown poet wrote, "I used to have a comfort zone where I knew I couldn't fail. The same four walls of busy work were really more than jail. I longed so much to do the things I'd never done before, but stayed inside my comfort zone and paced the same old floor. I said it didn't matter that I wasn't doing much. I said I didn't care for things like dreams and goals and such. I claimed to be so busy with the things inside my zone, but deep inside, I longed for something special of my own. I couldn't let my life go by just watching others win. I held my breath and stepped outside and let the change begin. I took a step, and with new strength I'd never felt before, I kissed my comfort zone goodbye, then closed and locked the door. If you are in a comfort zone, afraid to venture out, remember that all winners were at one time filled with doubt. The word for you today is, today, get out of your comfort zone." And I think the people from whom we're going to hear today are living examples of how you get out of your comfort zone. And so I welcome Bob and Mary Brown and Sherry Dotson and her husband Mike, who had to be involved in this whole procedure, I know, to share with us today how they've gotten out of their comfort zones. With that thought, I see that I am supposed to give any announcements. Does anybody have anything extra that they want to share that isn't in the bulletin? I do know that we are going to have a meeting after this of the people who are involved, first of all, with the John Walker little dessert effort after the service. When is that, Dory? Dory, where's Dory?
The 20th.
The 20th, okay. That we are going to be providing some refreshment for the family of John Walker, and it's appropriate that Sherry is here today. And then also we're going to have a meeting about the preparations for the July 4th meal. So we would appreciate it if any and all of you stuck around and got out of your comfort zone if you're not comfortable having help with these efforts before you come and see us today. Are there any other announcements? Okay, I was thinking about Roger when I thought about this song, and I thought it was very appropriate also to what we're going to hear today. And so you have it in your bulletin, and it is "Here I Am, Lord," and it's based upon Isaiah.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Glad to be here. I've got a subject I could talk about for 2 hours, but I won't do that. I do want to thank you people for the last 2 years. I'm sure you've given us a $500 check. We try, our group, and I'll explain a little bit about it, but we try to raise all the money we can because the house we live building is $4,500. Okay. I know you're going to talk into it. And we usually have raised from $18,000 to $30,000 a year every time we go down there. All the money we raise is spent in Mexico or in Texas where we're at. Everybody pays their own way down, everybody pays for their way. We've been going down for the last 5 years for 2.5 months, so.
Bob, I think it would, over here, I think it would tell them if you would help them if you would tell them who we is.
I'm going to,
Okay.
I'm going to give you the history of this. This started out 20 years ago. There's a group called the Carpenters from La Harpe Christian Church in La Harpe, Illinois. I duck hunt and fish with Rick Ballmer, who is a good friend, and he said, why don't you go to Texas with us and help build projects? So I said, I was retiring from farming, this was back in 1997 or 98. So this thing, so that first year there were 18 of us went. Now the first few projects we built were not in Mexico. The first year we built a church inside of a Butler building. We started it. Somebody else came along and finished it, but we worked a week on it. Our group continued to grow. The next year my daughter Linda said, I'd like to do that. So I've been going 20 years, she's been going, well actually 19, because the year I was district governor for Lyons I missed and she went, so she's been going with me ever since. My wife has been able, she was working at the time at hospital, so she didn't get to go a lot of times. Chris and Barb Thomas, who were here, ministers in Morning Sun, Oakville, and Wapello, went with us several years. Keith and Judy Spawn have been gone down with us several years from Oakville. But anyhow, this group, the Carpenters, kept growing and growing and growing. Pretty soon we had 40 or 50 people. And Diane, who's Rick's wife, said, that's too many people.
She's the cook.
She's the cook. We were going down, when we went down, we were staying in a place called Melody Lane. It was a Kansas wheat farmer, had gotten some houses in Mission, Texas, and converted them into dorms, and we stayed in those dorms. Well, eventually some of the neighbors said, you can't have dorms in this part of the town, and they run him out. So he went somewhere else. We now are staying in a place called New Life Baptist Mission, or New Life Advance, which has apartments. We stay in a 3-bedroom apartment, which we rent down there, which we pay them. So when this got bigger, she said, well, let's split in two. So we split in 2 groups. Now we have the old people, which is people from 65 to 80 or older in one group, and then we have a younger group that goes later in the year, and they take some high school kids with them because they go during President's Day where some of the kids can get on school. That's what our group is, and it's really grown. We have people from Burlington, people from all over, Carthage, all over. It isn't just the Harpe Christian Church. Actually, we ended up with about 5 or 6 or 7 churches. Because our church in Oakville was supporting us, the Morning Sun Church was supporting. We got money from Wapello Church. We got money from you. There were 3 or 4 churches over in that area that were supporting us. The Burnside Christian Church, where my sister and Wayne Caparoon, who married Wayne Caparoon, they have a group come their church raising funds. Then we started getting in, we built several things. Put up parsonage, we built rafters for a church one year on the addition, got them built and decided we couldn't lift them up there by hand and had to hire a crane to get it done. So we got into something. And then we got hooked up with Bruce and Paula Hepner, and they were building houses in Mexico for a colony under the Far Bridge. And this was a colony that they dug a drainage ditch or an irrigation ditch out and threw the dirt up, and these people came in and homesteaded. When we went in there, they had nothing. No electricity, no water, just houses. And we started building 12 by 24 homes with a loft in it. Now those homes cost about $4,500. Well, Bruce Hepburn, well actually I'll get back to this one, decided that he'd get in, and he put a water system in, put a solar system in to run the water system, run water lines down the sides of this 2-inch pipe, put spigots out in the street so they could go out and get water out of those spigots so they had fresh water. Well, eventually the government's come along down there and put electricity in. I don't know how they're getting paid for it because every pole's got meters on it with jumper wires across the meters. There's no meters in it. He eventually now is hooking up. They've got a company comes in and sells tanks for the people who build the houses for $20, and they got a tank in the yard now that the water system hooks the water into it. So he's expanded it that far. So it's quite a thing. Let me back up here. We're actually working with 3 missionaries, group says now. Group with Paula Hepburn. He was a truck driver from Chicago and she was a nurse. And they went down there on a mission trip and decided that these people needed help. He sold his trucking business, she quit her nursing thing, and they went down to Mexico or Texas, and they live in Mission or San Juan, right on the border where we stay. And depended on God's word to support them. And then about 3-5 years ago, we met another couple that was running the place we stay, and that was Sean and Carla Estes, and they're with a group called Fortify, that type of thing. And they are doing work over there. They have a church camp over outside of Reynosa. Now this is all in Reynosa and Progreso, which I'm talking about, where we're working now. Most of it's in Reynosa. But they have a church camp, which we've been into. It's probably 10 miles into Mexico. And they feed the people on the dump, and Barry's going to talk about that pretty soon, about feeding the people on the dump. Bruce decided that these people also needed things, so he hands out food once a month, which we go help do. He has from 165 to 200 families that come in. And they have sugar, flour. He gets rice and beans. He has a guy from South Dakota that raises black beans for him. Puts them in a truck, hauls them down there for free, and gives him that. And they come in those sacks for you people that farm. Those big sacks like soybeans come in. Now that's what the beans come in. He gets rice from somebody in 25-pound bags. So, and we go over to his house, take gallon bags, fill the gallon bags with rice and beans, and seal them up so he can hand out those every month. And he has groups come in and do that. But he also gets sugar, flour, oil, anything that people can use for commodities, hands out. He goes and buys cookies and pop, and he hands out cookies and pop to all the kids. This last year, at Christmas time, they buy Christmas presents for everybody in this colony. And we got down there last year, and it had been bad weather, so they didn't hand them. So we went over the first weekend in January and helped them hand out Christmas presents to 200 kids. They had the kids lined up put a tent up out there, and they had benches, and they lined them up from preschool clear up to 8th grade. And we had gifts for everything. So that's what he's doing. The third person we met in the last 2 years was Diane and Wayne Kelly. And they were from Sean and Carla were from Georgia. Well, Diane and Wayne were from Alabama. He was a doctor, and he retired, and he came down to run the place that we were staying, keeping track of it. So, and he went over and did medical things when we went to Texas. Like I said, we usually build houses. This year, Bruce said, hey, there's a couple over in Progreso that need a house. They had a stone block thing, and I'll show you some pictures too after a while on it. And they needed a 12 by 16 room built on the side. And one side of it was already there. So this year what we did, we went over to Progreso. Now this was different. Usually when we build for Bruce, he has all the supplies ordered. The people paint all the boards before we put the house up, so it's all painted. He brings them in. Somebody from the Mexican colony comes in and pours the cement for him. Well, this year we didn't have that. So we had to plan. Between Rick and I, we got down there early, just after the first of the year, and got the supplies lined out and what have you. And we went over and set up forms and where we're going to put this house. And there are Mexican people that Bruce has over there that help with us quite a bit. He's got 4 or 5 guys that he pays a little bit of money to help pour cement. So we got over there and set up the forms, dug footings around it where we were going to put the building on the outside. And they have what they call caliche, which is what they use for fill. It's kind of a rock sand thing. Well, it didn't come with a truck the day we were there, so we left and went home, and they said, well, the guy said, we'll fill it. So we went back the next week to finish it up and put a right re-rod in it, and he put the caliche in it and filled our trenches all full of caliches. So we had to dig them all back out. Well, we went to check about cement, and they wanted like $400 for bringing the cement, and we had to buy so much. One of the guys said, well, we can make some cement ourselves. So that's what we did. We ordered cement, caliche, and sand and rock. We went inside the 12 by 16 thing and made what we call a volcano. Sand and rock and what have you. Put it in there, poured the cement in it, put rock in it, went in with scoop shovels and stirred it all up, scooped it back in the back of it. We poured that 12 by 16 in about half a day. It was hard work, but it was fun doing it, and we mixed our own cement for the thing. So that's what we did this year to build a house for him. I said we had to do all the planning. We poured the cement by hand with 12 so we put up 3 walls around the outside of this, and I'll show you some pictures of it pretty soon. Normally when we weld a 12 by 24 house, we put a door in the front and usually about 5 windows, and we put a loft in them so that they could use the loft for a bedroom or whatever they wanted to. A year ago we had one that had little kids, so we actually we usually build ladders to get up to the loft. But we built a stairway where we went up and turned it and went all out. And the little kids, about a year or 2 old, they were going up and down the stairs like there was nothing to them. So we did this, and then they have what they call bondioses. Most of them, if you know what a bondios is, an outside toilet. And that's what they have, most of them. Well, in the West house, they're hooked up somewhere because he had in the bondios, he had a stool. And he had water hooked up to it. So they had water. This was in Progressive. Well, so the roof of the place, the bondios, was about to fall down. It had a stool and a shower in it. So we tore it down. We run water lines from the cities in Progressive back to this house. And we run the electric lines. Now the electric line they had an extension cord run over to the neighbors and wired into their house, and that's what they were using in the back part of the house for electricity. Wow. And when we left, they were supposed to come and hook up. We gave them some money to hook up the electricity. They were supposed to hook up the electricity, but the last time we were over there before we left, they still didn't have electricity hooked up to the house. So we built the house. While we were doing that, there's several ladies. They went over, and there was another guy that said he needed his house painted. And they asked him what color he wanted. Well, he had an orange car sitting in the yard. He said, I want my house that color. So we hunted around, because they like bright colors. So we hunted around and found some paint. And they went over and painted the outside of his house. And then when they got done, there was a church that we've been working over in Progressive to help out. They had to have the white inside cement walls needed to be painted white, so they painted all the walls in the church 2 coats of white coats. So we kept us busy while we were there. It was one of those weeks when it got kind of cold and chilly, so we went over to the church every day and ate lunch when we took it. We basically take our own lunches. We don't drink the water over there. And one time we've had people fix us. They like to fix us, what do you call them, with corn husks.
Tamales.
Yeah, they fix them before the thing. Because when we're done with a house, we have a dedication ceremony. And now, basically, our main objective is not to build houses. our main objective is to convert Christianity. And Bruce says on the average he has from 4 to 6 people converted every week he's down there. Now, to tell you how much support he got last year, he built 28 houses in 1 year, which is one every other week. I get a blog from him, and I got a blog a while back, and it's getting bad over there, because they got, when you go into where his colony was, there was 2 roads, upper and lower road. One day they were in his community center with some power builders, a group of men from California. There are 80 men in this group. They put $1,000 a piece into it, and they come up and build things like that. So they got $80,000, and they built him a community center. Well, they were in that, and all at once they heard shots fired, and there were 2 cartel gangs that got in a fight on the lower road and were shooting at each other. So right now, he's not taking anybody over there. He said it's bad enough we go over and build houses, but I don't want to think so. We're kind of wondering what it's going to be like next year. But the other thing is, the place we're staying has gone up for sale. Diane and Wayne went back to Alabama and left it. I don't know whether they're going to sell it because they got like a $350,000 or $400,000 price on this place. So they've tried to sell it before. We do a lot of work there also in our things. 3 years ago, we put siding on the front of the dining hall where we're staying. 2 years ago, we went down in and somebody had taken the ceiling out and all the stuff and was trying to rewire it and had left. So they rewired it. We were late getting here that year. Rewired it, put sheetrock on the ceiling, insulated it, put sheetrock on the ceiling. We have a group from Branson, the Farmers, with a musical group that came in, and there was 3 or 4 boys in that, and they got up in the attic and spread the insulation out and did it, and then we painted it. Last year we, 3 years ago, last year we built a housing tank unit, a 2-story house there on the thing, 12 by 24, I think it was. So we do a lot of work at where we're staying.
Could I interrupt there? When they were doing this ceiling, it was like a big dining room like this. They got it all done. Well, they got some of it done. And there was 5 guys there, and they were all, and somebody said, let's chip in $100 a piece and hire it done. And so they did. They hired this Mexican.
We put $500 a piece in and got a Mexican guy come in and finish the ceiling. We was putting tape and seams on it, and we didn't really care.
They weren't. It was hard work.
But so we've done a lot of work where we're staying. With Sean and Carla, we go to the dump to feed people. I'm going to let Mary tell you about that. And she also goes over. Paula has started a sewing class with the women once a week, and they make quilts. Mary brought some of them in. They're selling them $50 a piece. So if anybody is interested in quilts, I think Mary brought some.
These aren't for sale, but I brought 7 home.
No, get up there.
I had a large black bag, and they filled me up with 7 quilts, and so some of these are them, and I have sold those for $50 a piece. So, but if anybody's interested in a quilt, just tell me, and I'll bring one home for you. Let's see. Yeah, I will just go ahead and talk about quilting. At church last year, I had a lady hand me a check, and she said, I want you to take this and get supplies for your sewing ladies. Because, I mean, they're using, those little pins that come with shirts with hardly no head, that is kind of pins that they were using. And so I took that money and I went to Joann's. I had a 60 and 50 and 40 and I don't know what all percent. I bought a large cutting table. I bought 2 of those cutting, that you could cut. They have a lot of scissors, so I didn't have to do that. Bought a lot of pins. And then I also asked for people to clean out their sewing stuff. And if you had anything that you wanted to get rid of, and I had a lot of that to take down, along with scissors. I had needles and what have you. But what we do down there, they were thrilled to death last time. But what we do is, people have sent material, all sorts of material, and they cut them out. With this, they were using scissors, and they were getting nowhere. But with these cutters, we were able to cut out a bunch, and they made 4 quilts while we were down there. And nobody got cut. They were doing real good. We taught them how to clean the sewing machines, and we have taken sewing machines down that people have given us, or we've got at garage sales and things like that. But they didn't know how to clean them. They didn't know how to run an electric sewing machine. So I've been working with them for 4 years, and they all know how to clean the machine, and they know that if I'm there, they got to do it. Anyway, we've had a lady from La Harpe that has sent a new machine down every year. And so they have collected quite a few machines, but they don't know how to take care of them. They don't know that you don't pull things through as it's sewing and things like that. But we're getting through them. They're doing good. Anyway, they are selling quilts, and they've had several of them sold, but they were using blankets because that's what we asked for, was old blankets and stuff. Well, then when you tie them, the ladies will understand this, you can tie them because it's a bound thing. Well, then somebody gave them 2 great big rolls of batting, and the last ones they were making, I had to go through and retie a lot of them because they were going like this far. Well, batting will just shift. You have to have it, hand width, 4 inches, whatever. So the ones they bagged up for me, I came home, I had to redo them. And I called down to Paula and I said, they have got to learn this. So she says she's got them where they're tying them closer. So that's enough on that. Now, the food or the dump. Have any of you been to a dump? Any here at a dump? Well, they bring this stuff in and eventually they burn it off and then they'll go somewhere else. Well, down there, they have men that have horses and carts, and they pick it up from the people in the towns, and they get paid for doing that. Then they bring it to the dump and they dump it out. Okay. Well, in this dump, there are little pigs running around. There are donkeys. Well, no, I guess it was just horses that were running. And then there's mama pigs. And then there's all these children and people that live around the dump. They're all scavenging for stuff. And I've seen people bring, like hold up a dress and this. And little kids find a little pool they were dragging around. And some of the stuff that's taken to the dump, I think people are sending it. It's good stuff. Some of it's good. Then there's some that's just getting pop cans and cardboard and you name it. But anyway, we take, it's only once a month because that's all that's in their budget, and it costs about $75 to feed them a month. And my daughter Linda and Nancy, we did it twice last year because they provided the money for the food and stuff. But we take hot dogs and we cook them in Texas, and then we put them in a roaster, to keep them warm. And we have buns, and we set up all this food on a line, and everybody's there handing out, and they start lining up when they see us pull up. And all we give them is like 2 hot dogs apiece. Chips if we have them, cookies if we have them, a drink, and they can come back and get as much as they want to drink.
We also handed out last year, we made up health kit. We had some bags. People collect the bags like they give away at the state fair or shopping bags. And they put them in there, and we made up health kits in plastic bags. Toothpaste, we sat over there and put toothpaste, shampoo, soap,
Washcloths.
Toothbrushes, washcloths, they put them in there. Then they put in the back, they had a lot of backpacks somebody gave, so we used backpacks. They put blankets in them the first time we went. The second time, they put canvases in. The first time we went, it was cold, and the people live around the dump. They had a fire in the dump a couple of years ago and burned part of their houses down. They just rebuilt. But then we took canvases because the houses didn't keep the water out. They put the canvases in there. So, and the last time we went, Bruce and Paul, he likes to play music, and so he took his pickup and took his music thing, and two of them had guitars, and they had two ministers from Mexico. We got over there and preached the gospel to them for about 25 minutes before we turned handed out the food, and then they went through the line. We took a bunch of T-shirts. Somebody always gives us T-shirts.
Like banks, give it, you know, the kids have the savings thinking they'll have this big orange and green, and oh, they fell in love with it.
We handed out shirts to them. Bill Menace gave me a bunch last year that he'd gotten from the Methodist conference on the morning to take up there. So, anybody got any questions?
No, wait a minute, I'm not done. Anyway, when we're feeding them, I should say, when you're first going, everybody wants to go down to feed the dump. So every time a new group comes in, we take them down so they can see it. And it's like, when we're driving in, like, you know, they can't believe how these people are living. They have tarps hanging from trees, clear open. I mean, it was cold down there that day we were there. We were all in sweatshirts. And they were too if they had them. It's just, but you see these little kids, oh my gosh, they are the most beautiful little kids you ever seen. And your heart just comes, you know, but anyway, they line up, and we have, like, we're lined up too, and they're on one side, and we're on one side, and they're always thanking us and everything, but they get their bag first. This last year, they went through and they got blankets. We had enough blankets for every family. Most of them were the ones that you make with the fur. People had not fur, but you know what I'm talking about, that plush stuff anyway. Fleece, yeah, that's the word I'm talking about. And anyway, we had blankets, and it was neat because most of them just go ahead and take them, and then somebody will come, can I get that purple one? So we dig to the bottom, get the purple one out for them. And they just were so appreciative of everything. But when they go through for their food, they don't eat ketchup and mustard on their hot dogs. They eat mayonnaise, which is harder to put on. But anyway, we put the mayonnaise on, and some of them would want ketchup. And they get two apiece, and we take a coffee filter. And there's one that gets the coffee filters open, the other one, you put a bun on it, and the next one puts the hot dog on it. Yeah, get them 2 hot dogs, but still, you have to put them one at a time.
So we handle all the food.
And then they'll get the chips, and they'll go down, there'll be cookies or whatever. This last year was after Valentine's, Easter, I don't know which one, Valentine's. And they had a lot of candy that was donated from stores. Walmart's really great. A lot of the grocery stores give them the hot dogs at cost. You know, or they're about to be expired, and so we can use them. And people have really worked really good with them. And last year they had something else they had too. I can't remember what they don't normally get, but they were thrilled. But the kids were thrilled. It was it was little toys for the kids. So anyway, they get their bags, and they go, and they're not even away from the line, and they're eating. But they'll go sit down and stuff. And the guys that come in with the trash that has the horses and stuff, they come and eat with us too. Anybody that's there, we feed. And
Them, not us.
well, with them, yeah, we don't eat it. We don't have time. There isn't anything left. But we give everything away. We give approximately 200 to 225 hot dogs away. And if we have baby formula, we leave, you know, we spread stuff like that too.
Now, are there any questions? Now, I got a few slides here I'll try to show you.
head out. This one, this is the kind of, they've had to use their imagination and stuff to put this together. You got it ready? As you can see, they just put blocks
This
together.
is where we built the house this year. This is what they already had, they were living in. It's a woman and 2 kids that live here. That was a cement wall there. This is the cement pad we poured. My daughter made all these and run off on me last week. So we're getting ready to build a house there. Go ahead. This is where the baños and the shower house was when we went in. This is the outside. This is what was in there. We took all that tin off, took this gate down, and took everything out. So, and that's the house next door. Okay, so there we were working, cleaning stuff out of there. Working on the cement, taking the forms off. Back in the back part of the house. Go ahead. We'll keep some more along. But my daughter's friend Nancy and they were getting ready to paint boards. They helped us with that house. There's some more work. Go ahead. This is the lumber. We went to the lumber yard. Because like I said, usually they have it there. Well, we went to the lumber yard with 2 vehicles, a van and that, and loaded up all we could. This is a sink that we had, and we put it in together over where we're at. All right, we're unloading wood. That's some of our help. There's Wayne Caparoo and somebody we know. This is one of the part of the thing. There's Sean Nestus right there. He came over to help him and Wayne both came to help us. There's the guy that's part of the family. That's where they painted the house. Okay, here's your orange car.
Wow.
And that's what they painted the house. There's the house, they've got it painted orange. The termites are really bad over there. And the termites just eat everything up. We built a brand new church over in Brownsville 5 years ago, or 6 one year when we couldn't go to Mexico and the termites were working on it. All right, we're stopped for lunch. Probably got lunch set up there. That's Pam and Jim. This is Rick Ballmer standing there with the light. He's the guy who got me started going over before getting windows with it. You can see the house is coming together. Yeah.
Looking at what time it is and everything, I've asked Bob if he will be gracious enough to show these slides to anybody who's interested after Sherry has been able to speak. And so if anybody wants to get up while we're making the change, the transition here, get a cup of coffee or anything, do so, and then we will start with Mike and Sherry.
I didn't mean to take more time.
No, you didn't. You didn't. Yeah, good. I wish you would have helped me.
This one they
Yes, good stuff, isn't it?
I really like, but I can't find that at all.
No, she bought a case of the stuff.
I love that.
What's that?
Oh, I know. That's good.
Oh, yeah.
My sister-in-law has figured out how this
Oh, really? Take it from upstairs? Really?
She's gonna need to share that.
I like all the milk and these flavored milks or these associated coffee.
I have to buy a lot of coffee because I don't have a coffee.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold.
That you did it. Yeah.
This will go back.
Well, this one.
No, it looks like some.
Yeah, 20 And I don't think they did that. I mean, if you really look at that stuff, my house is not but I never did like those sections. But that's a good job. We didn't think they wanted that right now. Oh, hell no, you didn't. Have you gone to that?
You don't have to go back far.
Okay, folks, if you'll take your seats, we can get on with hearing about somebody else who stepped out of her comfort zone. I myself have questions for Bob, and I'm sure a lot of you do, so we'll open it up to conversation afterwards, but everybody get in your seats, and I present to you Miss Sherry Dotson.
Thank you. I'm used to talking to 6- and 7-year-olds, so I'm a little nervous this morning. Thank you. Okay, so last summer I had the opportunity to go to Zambia with a group from, most of them were from Harmony Bible Church. And if you want to hit enter. Zambia is a country in Eastern Africa. They have, it's the 17th poorest country in the world. Unemployment is around 80%. The average life expectancy is only 44 years. Lots of AIDS deaths in Zambia. 20% of the households are under child leadership, and there are about 700,000 orphans, and about 90,000 of them live on the streets. Sorry. Fear number one. Oh. 40 to 50% of the children are malnourished, and 40% don't have access to clean drinking water. We went with a group. We went with Stir the Fire Ministries. This is Pastor John and his wife Judith. They lead the Zambia side of the ministry. The other side in the U.S. is led by Dana Mole of New London. She was a vet there. You can go ahead and click to the next one. This is our team that went. We had a pastor, we had a counselor, we had 2 horticulturists, we had a contractor, we had a couple teachers, a retired nurse, and a veterinarian, plus just some good-hearted Christian people. Our goals for the trip, sorry. I'm just going to talk loud. Our goals for the trip. We provided health checks to all of the children. We provided new shoes to each child. Someone donated like 400 pairs of Crocs. Wow. And so we took those over. We provided new blankets for all the orphans. We had pastor and counselor training. There was construction going on at one of the schools. They did some women's seminars and some teacher training and some youth and children ministry activities. Going back to Stir the Fire Ministries, it encompasses 6 churches in the area that we were in. There are 2 schools that serve about 400 students. There are 9 teachers and about 255 orphans. So they also have a feeding program. Oops, we're not too far ahead. Okay. They have a feeding program that feeds those orphans every day. Often that's their only meal that they get each day. Their meals consist of, actually, these are, those pictures really quick were just 2 of the church buildings that were part of Stir the Fire Ministry. The one on the left is the main church at Tilapia, and that's where the school and the feeding program is located. And then the other church is in a town called La Mancha. Very basic structure, dirt floor, benches to sit on, but they are actually expanding. So there were trenches dug all around the outside of the church building. So it's just a growing Christian community. Zambia is a Christian nation.
That had to be so exciting to see places growing in
Yeah,
Christian.
it was. And these people were just on fire. Their enthusiasm, their joy, and their faith was just something that you can't even imagine until you're there. You can go ahead and click on. This is actually the school at Tilapia, at the main church, and right next to it is the playground. That's where the kids play. So just rocky, barren ground. And actually, they have added a new classroom where this playground was, so they don't even really have room to play right now. But it's a growing school too, which is exciting. This is the school, one of the classrooms, very bare, minimal, hardly any materials, supplies. They have basically a chalkboard at the front of the room. Furniture is just plastic, like lawn chairs that we would have. Probably, I mean, my lawn chairs are even nicer than what they're using there. This classroom is a third grade classroom. There were like 23 students. It was actually supposed to be an office, so they're very crowded. Just not a lot of room at all, if you want to go on. Here we have students. This is at Tilapia as well. There were around 210 students there. It's a preschool through third grade building at the time that we were there. They had 4 teachers and 1 aide. The preschool class had 50 kids in it, so 1 teacher and these 50, they call them babies. And then the third grade class had around 23. Each year they try to add a new classroom. So now they actually have a 4th grade. So next year when those 4th graders are done, they'll add a 5th grade classroom. So the school is going to continue to grow. And the teachers there had little slates that we had bought them for the students to use. They have chalk. Otherwise the kids just sit and watch and listen. So we wanted to do something for them to get the kids engaged while they're just listening to their instruction. Lined paper, there is, well, any paper period is a hot commodity. Lined paper, we had teachers with a ruler making their own lined paper. Wow. And it's just something that we just take for granted. Next, this is actually their lunch, the feeding program. The meals are prepared right there on the ground by some cooks. And when we were there, it's basically a plate of rice. Sometimes the kids ate off Frisbees. That's what they used for plates. One day they had some macaroni sprinkled on top of the rice, a little bit of tomato, and then one day it was rice with just some sugar sprinkled on top. And that's their meal. They eat with their fingers, and that's pretty much what their one meal. Next. They had a hose that they would wash with and that they would drink their water from. It did come from a well, so we're hoping that the water was pure, not contaminated. But our contractor, he built them a little washing station while we were there. So they just hooked the hose up to that, and then the cooks then would have a place too to wash up their plates. They didn't have enough plates for all the kids, so they quickly had to rewash plates for the next batch to come through. And that meal, that's what the teachers ate too. And then we, being the Americans that we are, we got to hire a cook that came in and fed us. So we went to a quiet little place and had our big meal, chicken every day. Next slide. This is another school that recently opened or reopened right before we got there. It's called Baluba, and it's down a rutted dirt road far away from any civilization, windows broken out. I think recently they had somebody come in and sponsor the windows, so they're trying to replace those. Just imagine your child going to school and their classroom had broken shards of glass in the window. There were, at the time we were there was no feeding program for those kids, no running water, no electricity. Next slide. They had about 180 students and 3 teachers. So, and those are the teachers from the Beluga School right there. The next slide. The teachers lived in houses at the school. So the teachers also had no running water, electricity, toilets, or anything. And then they had to, if they needed any supplies or anything, they had to walk 4 or 5 miles down a rutted dirt road to get what they needed. When we returned, one of the ladies that went on the trip, her church, bought them each bicycles so they can go down and get what they need and have some transportation. Otherwise, you're just walking. We did health checks. So Diane Knoll, the veterinarian, did health checks on each of the kids, and we had a retired nurse with us. And then we took turns, we washed each of the children's feet and put their new shoes on. So it was very, very touching. The orphans all received new blankets. I don't know where they slept at night. Hopefully they were invited into a relative's home. So at least they had their own blanket that they could cuddle up with and keep warm. So it's just kind of touching. Only the orphans got blankets. So when you see, and those are just a few pictures. So there's like 200 blankets that were handed out. So, but those kids show up every day for school to show up. The ministry also has a small farm, and so they're trying to supplement their feeding program, hopefully become self-sufficient, and then later on be able to even sell some of the surplus for some profit. And women's ministries. We had several women who went and they spoke to the women about faith, motherhood. We had a widow. She talked to them about just her experience as a widow. Women, I'm really not sure what their place is in the Zambian society. So just trying to empower them. And they have a lot of misconceptions about, I don't know if you would call them superstitions or cultural things, but they just about motherhood and, for instance, when you had a baby, they would express their colostrum and throw that away. They thought it was bad for the baby. And we, of course, know that that's like one of the most important things. So just trying to educate them and empower them. And they had a lot of interesting questions about what it was like to be a woman in the United States and marriage and just relationships. It was quite interesting. We did some activities with the children and the youth. We took jump ropes, soccer balls, parachutes. They don't have toys to play with, and just even the little buttons on a string that they could wind up and spin. And they were teaching them some of the little finger with a string, the teacup and saucer stuff. It was just fun. They loved it. And then just some of the totally different world than what we live in, but yet Pizza Hut delivers on a motorcycle. We had a dinner with the pastors and their families, and we wanted to treat them and maybe give them something more American. So they actually found a Pizza Hut, and he showed up on his motorcycle to deliver the pizzas. They didn't care for it as much. They traditionally eat something called enchima, and it's like it's some corn mush, mashy, gross stuff. But they like it because it fills them up and it sticks with them. The ministry had tried to send some kids for hunger meals that you package up over there, but they didn't like it because it left them hungry. So they prefer to go towards the rice and the starchy stuff that kind of sticks with them. Our contractor, nothing is easy there, nothing runs on time, and he went to the lumber yard, and if you go back one slide, that was his delivery. The lumber yard delivered that on the truck. We had a lot of trouble, kind of, we we as Americans, we have a time schedule and we want to get things done, and it just doesn't work that way there. You know, we're ready at 8, they show up at 9. You go to get some materials to do construction, and you're going to 4 or 5 different places, and it was very hard to get anything accomplished. They did mix the bricks with the little volcano like you were talking about. They made their own bricks for all the buildings at the church and the school. Also, a lot of their buildings are made from termite bricks, so kind of the opposite of termites are actually a good thing there. If you own a piece of property with a termite hill, that's good, because then you can in turn make your bricks for your house right from that. And so they were very self-sufficient, made it all there. They actually hired someone to do their bricks, and I think they paid them like $3 for every 30 bricks they made by hand. They could have had $5, but for $3, they got a meal included. So food is very expensive, so they were willing to give up cash money for a meal.
Wow.
And the teachers, we took gifts over for everyone who worked with the ministry, the teachers, the pastors, the cooks, the caregivers, the gardeners, and it was just like Christmas for them. Just the simplest thing. One of the teachers pulled out a bath towel and kissed it. I mean, they're just thrilled with things like that. So, and then just to show, in one of the churches, just turn your cell phones off. But that's really all I have to share. Let me see. It was a great experience. It was nice to see how fortunate we are here, and then just be able to spread a little bit of that joy to someone else. I have a few little brochures from Stir the Fire. There's lots of ways that if any of you want to help, that you can. A little bit goes a long ways. There are sponsorships. When we went, the teachers made $75 a month. And so since then, their salaries have been raised to $125 a month. They've got sponsorships for all the teachers. They've got sponsorships for gardeners. And everything that you give to Stir the Fire goes directly to, there's no overhead costs at all. So 100% of every penny that goes to the ministry actually goes to where it is intended to go. I don't know. Questions? Anything
Would you go back?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Is there, how far do they have to go to access? I mean, is there electricity available if they can hook it up?
The main church has electricity, and it's sometimes, I don't understand all of it, it's kind of pay as you go, kind of like a cell phone, so you might run out of electricity. I know they went to do one construction project and they had to go buy more electricity so they could hook up the power tools.
Kind of like a phone card.
Kind of, yeah. And then, of course,
and then phones. I mean, they're just cell phones basically?
cell phones, yeah. So, and well, I guess there were more cell phones than I thought there would be there. But of course,
Is the reception pretty good?
it was. I mean, I even got with my phone, and of course, there's Wi-Fi at our hotel that we stayed in. So I was able to FaceTime and text message and everything.
How far would you be from a civilization?
It depended.
With the things, basically we're used to.
Oh, well, the main city that we flew into.
I mean just what you expect, electricity, and where you could be in a town, and if you could afford it, you could have it.
Yeah.
How far would that be?
I mean, we were in a small area, but just the variance within that. I mean, that the school in Beluga, there's no power, no nothing, even close to there, I wouldn't think.
Okay, I think what he's asking is, when you were in Beluga,
Uh-huh.
and then you went to where you were working,
Uh-huh.
what was that, travel time, or
Oh, what was it, how far? Well, it seemed to take forever. We were probably within maybe like a 15-mile radius just in that time that we were there. And at night, there's trash everywhere. It's dirty, dry. And as soon as the sun went down, they'd start burning that trash, and that stench just kind of hung there, and the smoke and the...
Any kind of water system? I mean,
There were
even a
like
well?
public wells, like Out there in Beluga, I didn't see that, but like when we were in Andola, closer to the church, they were like, it looked like public wells. You would see people walking to those wells to get water and carrying their laundry places.
I want to know if you take this to the schools. I mean, I find it fascinating if you got 150 to 200 kids going to a little tiny office room, classroom, and they're there to learn, basically. They're there to learn.
Yeah.
And then you compare that to ours, where in the playground, I mean, my God, the parents here were just like, I can't imagine.
I almost admire the simplicity of it. It's just like, okay, this is what we have to do.
Yeah.
I don't have to entertain you.
Yeah.
We don't have to have,
Isn't
you
that-
know.
So you can pick up the most rocks.
That's right, exactly. It was cute, when they lined them all up, they would all put their hands on top of their heads, and so we asked the teachers, well, why did they do that? And they're like, well, so they don't touch each other. So, I mean, they're normal kids, but yet, and the teachers were funny too, when we talked to them and asked them about their needs. One of them said that they would like t-shirts and athletic pants for casual Fridays.
Cute.
They all had those long skirts. Really? They couldn't
Anyway, but yeah, and I was able to, I teach at West Burlington. We're in the process of getting new reading materials. We, of course, take our old stuff and just throw it in the trash. So I gathered up as much as I could, and we loaded suitcases and took all of that over. So then they actually had, books to read in their classroom and, teacher's manuals. So it kind of gave them a little guideline. And I actually have, how many pounds do you think?
1,200.
Anyway, Michael got an estimate after I got back, and I collected even more stuff, and it was like $3,400 to ship that over there. So it's all sitting.
Do you need more books?
Well, they don't share well. They just, they see something and they want it. They don't have it. They're, even the adults are like little kids, So it's kind of like they each need to have their own, at least each school. We talk to them, the school uses for a few weeks and then you trade, and they're like, oh, we don't know how that would work. So.
When you have nothing, what do you?
In Columbus, I know.
We're not used to doing
Since
it.
school's over, all the teachers went through stuff. There's a whole table full of books and stuff.
Yeah. And that's one thing.
Do you need?
Well, I mean, they would love it, it's just getting it there. And our contractor was supposed to go back this summer and do some more work, and we're gonna load him up with whatever we could, because it's actually cheaper to pay for the extra suitcases and fly him than to actually take the ship. But he had an accident. He's got a torn something in his leg, and so I don't think he can go now. So anyway, there's just, I teach first grade.
How would you compare, and it's probably, this is really hard, but the weather and the climate and I mean, it looks to me like they'd be out in the middle of Arizona or something.
Yeah, it was like really dry, red, barren. We were actually there in their winter. And so every day it was like 84, dry, not a cloud in the sky. But they do have a rainy season.
They do.
And I'm not sure when that is. And so, and their school year runs a little bit different. They do more like 3 months, take a month off, 3 months, take a month off. So their school year would start January 1st. So when we were there, of course I was out of school, so the kids were in, they were just wrapping up one of their terms. Oops, sorry. And I'll just leave these up here. More information, a little bit's outdated, but there's addresses, and they have a Facebook page.
So do you teach public speaking?
I don't, obviously.
You did a good job.
Okay, to wrap this up, I do want to ask something relating back to how I opened this. Sherry, how did you decide to make the trip?
He told me to go.
Mike told you to go.
I heard about it, and he was like, you need to go. So, and then once I talked to Diane, and I realized that there was a school involved. At first I was like, I don't know what I would do, but then when I realized that I could actually work with teachers and something that I knew about, then that kind of opened it up for me.
Mike, why did you want her to go?
I prayed about it, and I was told she should go.
I don't know that you heard him. He prayed about it, and he was told that she should go. Bob and Mary, when you first started thinking about doing this, why? Why did you do it?
Just something I always wanted to do.
It was something that was speaking to you.
I love helping other people.
Oh, really?
Okay.
My whole life has been that way.
I'm thinking, as this was going on, and thinking about my own husband, and I was looking at all the talent that is sitting represented in this room, and how each and every one of us could step out of our comfort zones and go. It doesn't have to be to Mexico, it doesn't have to be to Africa, but we each need to step forward and do something that we haven't done before to help other people. And to that, then I'm going to tie this all together with another reading from another one of these booklets that I got from Mary. And this is based upon John 1:40, and it's called, it says, Andrew first found his own brother Simon and said to him, we have found the Messiah. And he brought him to Jesus. And this is called Operation Andrew. In the early days of his ministry, Billy Graham wanted to mobilize local Christians to bring their unsaved friends and relatives to his evangelistic meetings. So the Graham team devised Operation Andrew, a simple plan whereby church members, first of all, listed the names of their unsaved friends, 2, began praying for them, and 3, invited them to Billy Graham's crusades to hear the gospel. Why the name Operation Andrew? Because each time we see Andrew in John's gospel, he's bringing someone to Christ. First, he brought his brother Peter. Then, in John chapter 6, he brought a lad to Jesus who had 5 loaves and 2 fish, and we know how that all worked out. And in John chapter 12, he led a group of Greeks to Christ. And each one of us can do the same. Years ago, a new Christian, 24-year-old Albert McMahon, loaded his pickup truck with friends and drove them every night to an evangelistic campaign in his city. Now, the chances are that you've never heard of McMahon's name before, but you're probably familiar with one of his passengers on the truck, a young man who was converted to Christ that same week. That man's name is Billy Graham. He was invited, he was taken, and he spoke up for Christ. Andrew brought his brother Peter to Christ, and Peter ended up bringing multitudes to Christ. You just never know. The person you share your faith with today or bring to church next Sunday may be used by God to do things that you never dreamed possible. And if you'll do your part, God will do the rest. And my thought about this whole thing is, to tie this all together, is that we each have talents that God has given to us. And we need to spread the word. And as I've emphasized to Koinonia, we have to be able to talk about Jesus Christ. And if you don't talk about Jesus Christ, you have to reflect Jesus Christ. And that is in your actions, that is in your attitudes, that's the expression on your face when you go out and you meet other people. None of us have any idea what kind of an impact we can have on other people. I so applaud Sherry and Mike and Bob and Mary for doing what they are doing. I think about, again, the talent that's sitting here and how each and every one of us could go someplace else and do something. And there are so many needs. And then I think back what Sherry says about, and Christine was talking about, that we have so much here that we just don't have anything to do with. And I remember the man from Wayland that spoke to us and how he was trying to get things shipped to other countries. And we need to pray about it. We talk about prayer lists. Well, this is something. How can we get the abundance that we have to other places where it is so desperately needed? I thank, and God bless you people for doing what you do. I thank each and every one of you here that's sitting here, because you have in one way or another contributed when we have sent money, have given money to these efforts. And so, I'm supposed to close this with prayer. Am I too close to this thing? Is that right? Does anybody have anything they want to say? Okay, let's bow our heads in prayer. Heavenly Father, Abba, you are looking down on us right now. And I pray that you are having the Holy Spirit move in each and every one of us to use the talents that you have given to us, to reach out, be an Andrew, invite people to church, that we will talk to people about Christ, that we will live lives that reflect what Christ means to each and every one of us. And we thank you for having given us the talents, for having given us the Holy Spirit that will prod us on to go out and spread your word and bring people to you. I ask for your blessing upon each and every one here, that we may go forth and be Christian. Keep us all safe. We ask for prayers for the people that are traveling, our pastor and his family who are on their, probably in Missouri now at Branson. I thank you for the women who worked together all together today. I thank you for Bob Nolan, very talented man who has shared and done so much for our church. I ask this in Jesus' name, through the Holy Spirit. Amen.